Hello. Welcome again to Brand Institute of Forensics and Security. And we are talking about emergency incidents. And today we shall be focusing on lesson number 5, which is crisis management. I remember I gave you an assignment to critically analyze the differences between an emergency, a crisis, and a disaster. An emergency, a crisis, and a disaster. And I hope you have done so. Today, basically, we shall be looking at categories of emergencies that can happen at organizational level. Emergencies that can happen at organizational level. Let's say we shall be talking about your workplace. What can go wrong at your workplace or near you? We are also going to talk a little bit about crisis, and we're also going to talk a little bit about disasters. We are going to see these things, how they happen, and what are the priorities, and what we need to do as a security professionals. Um, so we shall go straight away to the categories of emergencies. We first talk about emergencies, and when we talk about emergencies, we shall be talking about accidents. We shall be talking about electrical failure or power failure. We shall talk about gas leak. We shall talk about protest or demonstration. We shall talk about food poisoning. We shall talk about armed robbery. We shall talk about some kind of external threats. We shall talk about missing person. A missing person. A person is missing at your workplace. So and so is missing. We shall talk about sudden death. Sudden death is a very serious issue. We shall talk about the threat of terrorism, which is a very, very serious issue. Medical emergencies, earthquakes, and fire emergencies. Medical emergencies, earthquake, and fire emergency. Remember, Brand Institute of Forensics and Security, we also conduct terrorism, counter-terrorism training at a very advanced level. We conduct counter-terrorism training, and you may need to take these lessons with us. So we shall talk about this kind of emergencies, and we shall see how they develop and may become a disaster, and what are the priorities. But I want to say, number one, that priorities for all kinds of emergencies are the same. Priorities for all kinds of emergencies are almost the same. Priority for gas leak, priority for terrorism attack, priority for missing person, priority for food poisoning. These priorities are almost the same. And their priorities are: one, save life. But one priority put in your mind is to save life. Number two priority is to control the situation. Control the situation. Control the situation. Number three is to provide first aid to those people who are injured. Number four is to minimize property damage. Minimize property damage. But number one priority that I want you to keep in your mind is to save life. In any emergency, what comes into your mind is first of all saving life. And before you think about saving another person's life, you have first to assess the situation to ensure that you are safe yourself. Otherwise, you will go into a situation with the intention of saving life and you put your life in danger. So number one is to assess the situation. Assess the situation before you go into now the other basics. So we say priorities in all situations: save life, administer first aid, control the situation, protect welfare of guests and staff who are within that property, and then safeguard property, or rather minimize property destruction. So if I ask you, what are the priorities in emergency situations? I expect you to say save life, and then you talk about it. Administer first aid, and then you talk about it. Control the situation, and then you talk about it. Protect the welfare of guests and staff, and then you talk about it. Safeguard property or minimize property damage. You will find different journals, different books list them in different order. You'll find some journals, they say first save life, then control the situation, then administer first aid. You'll find other journals say save life, administer first aid, control the situation. I want you to think about it. Think about this one. In which order should they flow? Think about it. In which order should they flow? Should we first save life? And can we save life before we control the situation? And can we save life before we administer first aid? And can we protect the welfare of the people before we control the situation? So that is a question for you to think about. Let's talk about accidents. Accidents involving guests, staff, or other visitors, including contractors. We are talking about your work property, your work premises. And we are taking an example of a hotel setup. That is why we are talking about guests. We are taking an example of a hotel setup or a multi-story building, a multi-story building. So we say accidents involving guests, staff, or other visitors, including contractors. Number one, priorities. Provide medical assistance, control the scene, provide accident assistance to relatives, do not admit liability. That one is very sensitive. Do not admit liability. And mostly, the people who will come to you and make you admit liability are journalists and reporters. They will ask you questions and you may end up putting your organization in a very compromising situation. If they ask you, for example, and they have very tricky questions, the way they post the questions, you can easily admit without knowing you are admitting. For example, they will ask you, do you think, was there a problem from yesterday related to power failure? You say yes. Already you have put the organization in a compromising situation. Refer these matters to the designated person who deals with media handling, mostly the general manager or the director of operations or the sales and marketing director or manager. Refer all questions to the person who is responsible for media information. Communicate accident details to relevant parties. Remember, for example, when we had the Westgate attack, you saw what was happening. Different media outlets were reporting things in a very different way. In a very, very different way. Because they are at the site. They are gathering information from security, from the people who are there, and already they are disseminating the information, and it was total chaos. There wasn't any structured way of communication. I remember that time the governor for Kajiado, or I don't know if it's Kajiado or Narok, Ole Lenku, who was the interior cabinet secretary, and you remember how chaotic it was. You remember how chaotic it was. You remember how chaotic it was. So what I mean to say is that in the event of an accident at your workplace, do not admit liability. Liability is to say, yes, it is our mistake. Yes, it is the mistake of the organization. We did not act correctly. We did not communicate correctly. That is admitting liability. You will be putting your organization in a very compromising situation. Workplace accidents occur mainly due to negligence, mainly due to ignorance, mainly due to people failing to follow standard operating procedures, mainly due to people deliberately refusing to follow safety measures. Workplace safety is a crucial aspect of any organization as it directly impacts the well-being of employees and the business's overall productivity. Despite ongoing efforts to create safer work environments, accidents will still happen. Accidents still happen. Understanding the common cause of workplace accidents can help employees and employers take proactive measures to minimize risks and foster a safer work culture. So accidents. Number two, let's talk about 12 common causes of workplace accidents. 12 common causes of workplace accidents include range from slips, trips, and falls to workplace violence. Workplace violence causes workplace accidents. We say by raising awareness of these hazards and implementing appropriate prevention strategies, organizations can work towards reducing the number of accidents and creating a healthier, safer work environment for everyone by raising awareness. And I say it is the job of the security department. It is the job of the security manager to build yourself, to develop yourself by raising awareness across the organization on and implementing appropriate preventive strategies. It is the responsibility of the security manager or the security head. This way is what we call, it is related to adding value. That despite the job of security, I add value in the sense that I create awareness that leads to prevention of accidents. Common causes of workplace accidents include slips, trips, and falls. Poor ergonomic. You have heard about this word. Poor ergonomics. Poor ergonomics is the setup of the work environment, how the desks are structured. If you are working, bending your neck on one side 24 hours, or if you are working in a control room that is very cold, the temperatures, the AC is very down, it is very cold, or it is very hot. These are what we call factors that affect your well-being. We usually also talk about these factors when we conduct occupational health and safety training. Manual handling and lifting, inadequate training. You see, inadequate training leads to workplace accidents. Faulty or poor maintained equipment, chemical exposure, electrical hazards, falling objects, vehicle accidents, inadequate safety gear, workplace violence, and human error. These are some of the common causes of workplace accidents that you should be aware of. And when we talk about workplace accidents, we are also going to go back to issues related to occupational health and safety, where we shall talk about alerting the authorities, protection, helmet, work safety, hazards, this kind of issues, gloves, secure, all those things are related to prevention of workplace accidents. Electrical failure or power outage. How can it become an issue, or how can it become an emergency? Electrical failure. Electrical failure can become an emergency in so many ways. I want you also to think about it. Power outages are what occur when electricity, particularly the electrical power network or electrical grid, is unavailable. There are many different causes for power outages, but the one thing is that they all have in common is that they affect whole areas or regions, not just a single facility. So when the whole area or region is affected, that is when we call it a power failure or power outage, not just a single facility. And this one may cause accidents in such a way that, especially if it is at night and there is no power, then people may not be able to see where they are going. People may go into panic mode. People may lose concentration on whatever they were doing. So power outage can easily lead to an emergency situation that people need help, or people are even trapped. Maybe people are inside a lift when the power went off, and now they are stuck there. They are stuck there. It is for you as a security professional to know what is supposed to be done. Remember also, power outages increase the risk of fire. Increase the risk of fire occurrence. Power outages increase the risk of fire occurrence. So you must also think about it. In which way can power outage increase the risk of fire occurrence? What causes power outage? There are many causes for why power outage occur. However, the three most common causes are natural causes, human error, and overload. Overload. Take note of overload. Basically, any interruption between power generation and the supply of electricity can cause power outage. It can stem from weather conditions, human error, equipment failure, and even animal interference. Scheduled maintenance can also cause a power outage. Scheduled maintenance can also cause a power outage. Priorities when it comes to electrical failure or power outage: maintain lighting within the facility, so there must be emergency power supply. You as a security professional or as a security manager, you must ensure there is an emergency power supply at your workplace, and then be aware of increased risk of fire, minimize adverse impact to people, and then increase security patrols, and then increase contact with other people. Increase contact with other. So we are in total darkness. We need to increase security patrols. We need to be aware of increased fire risk. We need to minimize adverse impact to people, and we need to maintain lighting the facility. So the major thing to remember here is that every facility, every organization should have mechanisms for emergency power supply. Gas leaks. Gas leaks. You have had a gas leak, serious gas leak, leading to a very serious emergency. From cooking and regulating home temperature to manufacturing and producing chemicals, natural gas is a primary energy source for individuals and businesses alike. While not renewable energy, natural gas as an energy source produces less carbon emissions than fossil fuels like coal and oil. However, hazards like gas leaks are a real risk with this form of energy. I will say one thing here. As a security professional also, you have to know how to switch off the gas valves. Most facilities have gas installations for the purposes of cooking and temperature regulating of the or manufacturing. You must be able to know where are the gas tanks located and how do we switch off the gas supply. Remember, a gas tank location is one of the critical areas within a facility. These are some of the areas called critical areas that need 24-hour surveillance, 24-hour monitoring, 24-hour patrols, because a gas tank can easily turn into a bomb. Where we store gas and where we store petrol fuel and diesel, these are very sensitive areas within any facility that need security attention. Natural gas contains methane, a greenhouse gas that harms people and animals when inhaled in large volume. Prevent gas leaks at all costs. Prevent gas leaks at all costs. Gas leaks often result from incorrectly fitted, poorly maintained, or faulty gas pipes and appliances. If appliances are not installed properly, gas can leak from the seals or hoses connecting the cooker, boiler, HVAC system, stove, or other instruments to gas pipes and gas pipelines. HVAC is a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. HVAC is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system. And when we talk about counterterrorism, when we talk about biological threats, this is one of the areas that security needs to focus on a lot. Focus on a lot on securing gas storage, securing the fuel storage, securing the heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems. Mark my words, because if you don't get a chance to attend a counterterrorism course, then you will learn something from what we are learning today. Gas leaks, priorities: turn off gas mains regardless of effect on operation. Prevent a fire situation that is a high risk. Eliminate additional hazards. Remove all naked lights in a suspected area. Enforce a no smoking zone. Do not reconnect gas supply until formally authorized. Take note of enforce a no smoking zone. All working areas, all working facilities where people work, organizations have smoking areas. And it is a big violation when the people smoke in non-smoking areas because it increases the risk of fire. So you as a security officer, you as a security manager, you must be able to patrol these areas and ensure that people are not smoking anyhowly anywhere within the premises. It increases the risk of fire occurrence. Smoking is good, but again, smoking is also not good. It has got adverse health impacts. However, I am not a counselor to counsel people and tell them not to smoke. People can smoke the way they want to smoke, whatever time. I'm just trying to say that smoking increases the risk of fire, especially if people are not following the rules and policies. Then another thing is to install a carbon monoxide detector. Carbon monoxide is invisible, highly poisonous gas that can be emitted whenever carbon fuels such as natural gas and gasoline don't completely burn, causing incomplete combustion. When I was in the Air Force, we used to talk a lot about incomplete combustion. When jet engines are running and the plane wants to take off and there is incomplete combustion, then you'll see the exhaust, you'll see emission of black thick smoke. So when the aircraft passes by, you'll see emission of black thick smoke. It means there is incomplete combustion in the process of mixing air and the fuel inside the combustion chambers. While carbon monoxide doesn't usually pose health risks in the open air, it turns dangerous in confined spaces like kitchens, garage, and basements. If you are also working at a facility where you have basements, that is also something very sensitive. It is also an area that needs critical attention. If there is a basement at your workplace, that is an area that needs critical attention. When we continue, we see that inhaling even small volumes of this gas can harm or kill humans and animals. Carbon monoxide is a leading cause of poisoning. Since carbon monoxide is colorless and odorless, it's difficult to people to detect. Therefore, you can expose yourself to carbon monoxide unknowingly. For this reason, it is advisable to install a carbon monoxide detector or carbon monoxide alarm on every level of the building. Take home that point. Check at your work area, especially if it is a hotel where we cook a lot using gas. Check whether we have installed carbon monoxide detectors or carbon monoxide alarm systems on every level of the building. Note that one down. Knowledge is power. We talk about natural gas. When you experience gas leaks, knowing how to deal with the situation so that you stay safe is vital. By regularly maintaining gas pipes, fixtures, and appliances, you can significantly reduce the risk of developing gas leaks. Installing a carbon monoxide detector can further assist in preventing carbon monoxide poisoning. So if you are asked a question, how do you, what measures can you take? What measures can you take to prevent gas leaks? Or what measures are necessary in prevention of gas leaks that may lead to a very serious situation or a very serious accident? You speak about the things that I have just mentioned, and you'll have. So if asked that question, that is how you can respond to it. Let's talk about demonstration or protest, and we shall talk about establish the priorities, establish the reason behind the demonstrations. Employees can demonstrate, or there can be a demonstration near your workplace and leading to an emergency situation, because demonstrations sometimes turn chaotic and people start looting and beating other people, and it may become easily generate into an emergency and further crisis. So secure the perimeter and all access points. Minimize disruption to facility occupants. Avoid confrontation. Avoid confrontation. Make contact with the group organizer or leader if safe to do so. Request them to disperse. Minimize risk to people. Security manager will establish a security team to monitor the protest. So the security manager must establish a team to monitor the protest. During one of the post-election violence, I used to work at Serena Hotel, and it was very chaotic because meetings were being held at Serena during the Kofi Annan um, meetings between former President Kibaki and late former President Kibaki and Jaramogi Raila Odinga. There were meetings held at Serena Hotel, and I was in charge security at that particular moment because my manager had an accident and he had gone home because his property at Eldoret had been burned down. So it was really chaotic, and dealing with the protests is not a simple matter. It is something that can easily lead to a serious emergency situation. Food poisoning also, specifically in the hotel industry or even in the healthcare or even where you are working at the organization. Food may be served and it causes food poisoning. Food poisoning is a general term for health problems caused by eating contaminated food. Food may be contaminated by bacteria, viruses, toxins, or poisons from the environment or toxins within the food itself. Symptoms of food poisoning usually include vomiting and diarrhea. Some toxins also affect the nervous system. And when we talk about this, remember also to take into consideration biological terrorism warfare. People may use these kinds of attacks to poison a large number of people. That is why we say you have to secure the water storage tanks, you have to secure the gas storage areas, you have to secure the fuel storage areas, you have to secure all these sensitive critical areas within your facility. You have to know which are the most critical areas and how do we secure them, including the operator's room, including the IT servers storage location. These are some of the areas we call critical locations that need total surveillance, that need total 24-hour monitoring, that need access control measures that are very strict. Actions do not admit any legal liability. Isolate samples of suspected cause and be discreet. Refer victims to hospital for medical assistance. Identify where else food or drink was consumed. Obtain details of date, time, and items consumed by affected parties. Those are some of the actions you can take if you are in charge of security at your facility and there is a suspected case of food poisoning. Those are some of the things that you should do. And then robbery, we know that this is a serious situation at home, Kenya. Robbery happens a lot. You know that very well. Robbery is the crime of taking or attempting to take anything of value by force, threat, or force, or by putting the victim in fear. Preserve life and ensure the safety and welfare of people. Inform security chief, the police at the earliest opportunity without putting yourself or others at risk. Avoid aggressive or confrontational action. Hand over cash or valuable to on request. Police may be needed if it is a serious assault or a hostage situation. So a robbery, not only in Kenya, robbery happens all over. Even here at the United States, even United Kingdom, even Australia, even South Africa, robbery happens a lot. There's my cousin, one of my cousins, he's a chef, he's called Shuma. He went to work in South Africa for some few months. Then he returned home because he said the rate of violence there is very high that you can end up losing your life very easily. So he decided no, he will continue with the job. He came back home. So there are some countries that have high levels of robbery situations, especially South Africa. South America, if you go to South America, countries like Chile, Argentina, countries like Mexico, especially where people deal with drugs and firearms are easily available, you'll find cases of robbery are very high. Robbery becomes an emergency in the sense that it is use of violence or threat of use of violence. And people may be armed and people may be using crude weapons. And it becomes an emergency because life is at stake. Property destruction is at stake. Take note of that. And then medical emergencies, we say all medical related emergency will be referred to hospital. First aid members may be required in situations involving over 5 victims. Maintain contact of nearby hospital and ambulance services. You as a security professional, maintain contacts of nearby hospitals and ambulances. And remember, we say there should be a first aid team and a fire team at all facilities. It is your role as a security person to ensure there is a first aid team and there is a fire emergency team, well trained, who know how to they can save life in these serious situations. Sudden death can occur on the premises. At any minute, you discover a dead body. Death is the termination of all biological functions that sustain organisms. Any discovery of a lifeless body on the premises must be reported immediately to security chief and management. Take note, only doctor can determine that a person is dead. Police presence is required. When it comes to death, police presence is required. And only a doctor can say for sure this person is dead. You have got no authority legally to say, to determine or to conclude that a person is dead. Threat of terrorism, as I said earlier, we conduct this course, a detailed course. Please get time and attend it. Emergency of lone actors and spontaneous volatile extremists, complex attack plots featuring organized networks, diverse attack threats, knives, firearms, and explosives. Any bomb threat calls have to be referred to police without delay. Detailed procedures necessary for handling a bomb threat are available at the security and telephone operators room. Check if these are available at your workplace. Check if we have detailed procedures necessary for handling a bomb threat or this kind of situation. And then we say posting possible real threat that may require evacuation. Police presence must be involved. Police presence must be involved. And then also we say suspected device. You already know about this. Evacuate the immediate area. Minimize panic. Notify the police. Consider full evacuation based on police advice. Security may require police support in evacuation. Police presence is also required when we have a suspect device. Then we say, if there is an earthquake, now we are moving to the stage of a crisis. Recently, there was an earthquake in Morocco, I think, in one of the African countries, where we lost so many people. I hope you heard about it. There was a serious earthquake recently. So when it comes to earthquake, causing major injury, death, or property damage, earthquake occur without warning, and planning for them before it revolves around immediate survival and recovery to the event. An earthquake may lead to possible tsunami, waves leading to damage to property, injury, and death. Immediate action by security and management is required to save people. Can you, on your own, do your own research? How do you handle an earthquake? How do you handle an earthquake emergency? That is also one of the assignments. How do you handle an earthquake emergency? I've given you 2 assignments so far. 1, critically analyze the differences between crisis and emergency and a disaster and give me feedback. 2, do a small write-up on how to handle an earthquake emergency. A small write-up on how to handle what should you do if there is an earthquake at your workplace. And then fire, we also conduct fire training, which we conduct also these ones. Fire can occur at any time when proper fire safety measures are ignored. Members of the firefighting team are trained in the contain and are ready on standby to respond to fire situation. All staff must be trained on actions to take in the event of a fire emergency and evacuation procedures. Fire brigade is required for huge fire emergency and evacuation. Have contacts, maintain friendships during peacetime so that if there is a situation, you know who you can call for help. And then we say crisis management cycle again: mitigation, preparedness, recovery, response. Mitigation, preparedness, recovery, response. Mitigation, preparedness, recovery, response. Read about this crisis management cycle, because definitely, without lying to you, I'll ask you questions on this one. I'll ask you questions on crisis management cycle. I will ask them in a very technical way, but I will expect you to give me answers to this one, because we want to develop security professionals who can understand what we are talking about. That is our aim. At Brand Institute of Forensics and Security, we want to specialize in producing quality security graduates. And then we have a crisis management plan. A crisis management plan is a document that describes the processes that an organization should use to respond to a critical situation that could adversely affect their profitability, reputation, or ability to operate. So a crisis management plan. So as a security professional, check if a crisis management plan is available at your workplace. Does it exist? And if it exists, where is this crisis management plan? And if it is there, have the people been trained? And if they have been trained, do we conduct drills? And what about new employees? And what about, these are the things that we should take into consideration as a security professional. Then the 5 steps of drafting a crisis management plan are ground rules and risk assessment, business impact analysis, response and contingency planning, training and coordination and review. The National Crisis Management Framework provides a comprehensive approach to understanding the components of a crisis, or the 5 P's of crisis management: predict, prevent, prepare, perform, post-action, and assessment. Those are some of the 5 P's of crisis management: predict, prevent, prepare, perform, and post-action and assessment. And then there are 6 recognized phases within a crisis. There is the warning stage, the risk assessment, the response stage, the management stage, resolution stage, and the recovery stage. This is the 4th of 6 topic briefings that will explore each of a crisis, identify specific areas of concern, and provide manageable results. What are the 3 elements of a crisis management? If change is not needed, the event could more accurately be described as a failure or incident. Generally, 3 elements are common to a crisis: a threat, a surprise, and a short decision time. Remember, a threat, a surprise, and a short decision time. A threat means life is at stake. Property destruction is at stake. Surprise means without notice. Things just happen from nowhere. A short decision time means you must be very proactive. You must be very ready to make decisions quickly to solve the situation. Please remember also those 3 elements of crisis management. And then how to write a crisis communication plan. There should also be a crisis communication plan inside the main major crisis management plan at organizational level. There should be crisis communication plan, and this means identify the goal or the plan of the plan, identify stakeholders, create a hierarchy for sharing information on the crisis, assign people to create fact sheets, identify and assess examples, crisis scenarios, identify and answer common questions, identify potential risks. Those are some of the steps of writing, how to write a crisis communication plan. And then 5 critical elements of a crisis management plan. 5 critical elements. Align the crisis communication plan with the operational plan. assign crisis team members and backups, and know how to reach them. Know your risks and build those into your plan. Training can be difficult, but the alternative is worse. Training can be difficult, but the alternative is worse. Those are some of the 5 critical elements of a crisis management plan. We have looked at scenarios that can occur in the workplace. This document is not exclusive. It's not all inclusive. It means there are also other types of situations, other types of accidents that may occur, or other types of emergencies that may occur at the workplace that maybe we have not mentioned here. So when you have a break, discuss amongst yourself, what have we not mentioned that can occur as an emergency? And then going back to the assignment, think about what is an emergency and what is a crisis and what is a disaster. And when we talk about these things, what are we mainly saying? Think about those things, and then think also about how do we manage, what actions do we take if there is an earthquake? If there is an earthquake, what are the procedures? What are the actions? Thank you very much for listening to me again today. We are going to meet again, lesson number 6. As we continue to cover ground, we are going to meet again for lesson number 6. So thank you very much. Bye-bye, and see you soon.